All right, hi everyone. This is Chapter 1, Lesson 8 for Ravenclaw on roots. So, the first thing that I want to look at is this is a lot of pages. It's actually 4 pages for this lesson. Realistically, we're just looking at the first 2, okay? The third page is some information that gives you a roots table to make your life a little bit easier. And then the 4th page is just a cute cartoon that I found that I thought you guys might enjoy. All right, so let's look at some definitions first. I'm going to zoom in a little bit more. Okay, so it says a blank blank of a number is one of its 2 equal factors. So in those 2 blanks, you're going to write square root. Okay. So a square root of a number is one of its 2 equal factors. Numbers such as 1, 4, 9, 16, and 25 are called blank blank. Those are perfect squares, okay? Because they're squares of integers, okay? So when I take the square root of 4, I get 2, because 2 times 2 gives me 4. Square root of 9 is 3. 3 times 3 is 9, okay? So basically in words for square roots, this says words, a square root of a number is one of its 2 equal factors. So basically 2 times 2 gives me 4, so 4 is a perfect square. It's a square root, okay? If x squared equals y, then x is the square root of y, okay? So 5 squared equals 25, so 5 is the square root of 5. So if I were to take this, that's the square root of 25, this equals 5 times 5. So the square root of 25 is 5. Okay? So for every positive number has both a positive and negative square root. In most real-world situations, only the positive or principal square root is considered. A radical sign is used to indicate the principal square root. So if n squared equals a, then n equals plus minus the square root of a. Okay? So that means they can have both a positive and a negative, because technically negative 5 times negative 5 would give you 25. Okay? So that's why we're using pluses and minuses. All right? So that's why we're using positive and negative. So let's look at some examples. So the first example I have over here, it says find each square root. Okay? So I'm going to take the square root of 64. What times what gives me 64? 8. So I find the positive square root of 64. 8 squared does give me 64. Okay? For number 2, I have plus or minus 1.21. So I need to find what times what gives me 1.21. So what I can do is I can actually take my calculator. Let me zoom out so you can see a little bit better. Okay? So this is my calculator here, right? So what I'm going to do is I'm going to hit the second button, and then I'm going to come down to where the square sign is. See that little green square root? Okay, so that gives me a square root, so you can see that symbol, 1.21. Close parentheses, press enter. I get 1.1. So my answer is plus or minus 1.1. Sorry, just zoom out for the calculator. Okay, so when I plugged it into the calculator, I got 1.1. Okay, same thing for number 3. The negative's on the outside, so I take the square root of each of the items on the inside. Square root of 25. 5 times 5 gives me 25, so I get 5. 6 times 6 gives me 36, so I get 6. I have this negative sign out front, I leave it there, so I get negative 5/6. For 4, I have the square root of negative 16. There is technically no real square root because no number times itself is equal to negative 16. 4 times 4 gives me 16, but it doesn't give me a negative 16. All right, they have to be the exact same. So it can't be 4 times negative 4. That doesn't work. All right, it has to be the same. All right, then number 5. Okay, it says solve t squared equals 169. Check your solution or solutions. Okay, t squared equals 169, so that means I can square root both of these. Okay, t squared gives me t equals plus or minus the square root of 169. Technically, 13 times 13 or negative 13 times negative 13 gives me 169. So my two answers are 13 and negative 13. Well, I can check both, right? 13 times 13 gives me 169. Negative 13 times negative 13 still gives me 169. So they both work. All right, now you have a couple of try problems. Go ahead, try them out on your own. Okay, pause the video, and when we come back, we'll look at the answers. All right, now that you've paused the video and unpaused the video and tried them out on your own, let's look at the answers together. So the first one is the square root of 9 over 16. Well, 9 is 3 times 3, so this equals 3 over 16 is 4 times 4, so I get 3/4. Okay. Letter B, plus or minus the square root of 0.81. So again, I'm going to take my calculator. Second squared, 0.81, close my parentheses, I get 0.9. So it's plus or minus 0.9. That plus or minus is out in front, leave it there, okay? C is negative square root 49. Well, 7 times 7 gives me 49. So this is going to be negative. I leave the negative sign, 7. Okay. For letter D, I have negative 100. I can't do this. Remember, there's no real square root because no number times itself is equal to negative 16. So for that one, you're going to write no real solution. Okay. Then I have 289 equals a squared for E. So I can square root both of these. Okay. So when I square root this, I get A equals plus or minus 17. So I can have a positive 17 or I could have a negative 17. Okay, I can do the same thing down here for F. M squared equals 0.09. I can square root both of these. I get M equals plus or minus 0.3. Okay. Letter G says y squared equals 4 over 25. So the same thing I did for E and F, I can also do for G. I'm going to square root y squared, and I'm going to square root 4 over 25. So I'm going to y equals square root of 4 is 2, square root of 25 is 5. So y equals 2/5. All right, so the second part of this is talking about cube roots. So I can come over here, talk about cube roots. All right, so in words, a blank blank, a cube root of a number is one of its 3 equal factors. So we talked about square roots are 2 equal factors, cube roots are 3 equal factors. Okay, so some symbols. If x cubed equals y, then x is a cube root of y. Okay, so basically what I can do is I can take the cube root, and they tell the cube root because they have a little 3 in there, something like 8 and that's 2 cubed, right? 8 is 2 cubed. 2 times 2 times 2 gives me 8. So the cube root of 8 is 2. Okay. So numbers such as 8, 27, and 64 are perfect cubes. Because they are the cubes of integers. Okay, so 8 equals 2 times 2 times 2, or 2 cubed. 27 equals 3 times 3 times 3, or 3 cubed. 64, 4 times 4 times 4, or 4 cubed. So if n cubed equals a, then n equals the cube root of a. You can use this relationship to solve equations that involve cubes. So for the problems that we're going to look at, we're going to try them out first together. Okay. So number 6 says the cube root of 125. Well, 5 cubed equals 5 times 5 times 5, or 125. So the cube root of 125 equals 5. 7, cube root of negative 27. Now remember when we said square roots, you couldn't have things that were negative inside square roots. You can in cube, because if I do negative 3 cubed, negative 3 times negative 3 times negative 3 gives me a negative 27. So negative 3 is the cube root of the cube negative 27. Okay? Number 8. Dylan has a planter in the shape of a cube that holds 8 cubic feet of potting soil. Solve the equation 8 equals s cubed to find the side lengths s of the container. So 8 equals s cubed. I can take the cube root of 8 and the cube root of s. Cube root of 8 is 2, and I get s. So each side of the container is 2 feet. I can always check 2 cubed does equal 8. All right, so there are a couple of try problems down here. I want you to go ahead, pause the video, try out the try problems for yourself. When you're done, we'll come back and we'll solve them together. All right, so the first problem I want to look at is H. H says the cube root of 729, okay? Well, what times what times what gives me 729? Okay, 9 times 9 times 9 does give me 729. So the cube root of 729 is 9. Okay. For letter I have the cube root of negative 64. Okay, so negative 4 times negative 4 times negative 4 equals negative 64. So my answer is negative 4 for I. J asks me for the cube root of 1,000. So what I can do is I know that this is 1,000 is 10 times 10, because 10 times 10 is 100, times 10 is 1,000. So that means my answer has to be 10. Okay. For K, a little bit further. There we go. An aquarium in the shape of a cube that will hold 25 gallons of water has a volume of 3.375 cubic feet. I want to solve s cubed equals 3.375 to find the length of one side of the aquarium. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to take this problem and I'm going to cube root it, right? So this gives me s. Now, 3.375, not really something that you probably will know off the top of your head. So I'm going to take my calculator. My calculator is super cool. It does cube roots too. So what I'm going to do, okay, is I'm going to take cubed, so that's 3. So I'm going to hit the 3 button first. So 3, let me zoom out a little bit, it'll be easier to see. Okay, so I took 3, right? I got the 3 there. I'm gonna hit the second button, so that green button up there, and then I'm gonna hit the one that has this little caret on it. And you can see right there, okay? It has X and then the square root. So I'm gonna hit that. So now I have this. Then I'm gonna put what goes underneath my square root. In this case, it's 3.375. Okay. Then I'm gonna hit enter. And it's gonna tell me my answer. That's my cube root, 1.5. So S is 1.5. Okay. So that means that each side length of the aquarium is 1.5 feet. Okay. I can double check. I can do 1.5 cubed, which does give me 3.375. Okay. All right, so like I said earlier in this lesson, on page 28 you have root tables. So I want to go ahead and look at these with you real fast. Okay, so it basically just gives you the square root, the perfect squares, up to 50, and then it gives you some cube roots. Okay, both positive and negative, all the way up to 10 for cube roots. Okay, and then I have on page 29, it's really this fun little cartoon that I found, and I thought you guys would enjoy it. All right, so that is the end of lesson 8.